children, safety and security are a very big piece of the Taurus mix. That's a very important piece.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of the slow and steady wins the race kind of person. And sometimes the Taurus can be confused with procrastinating, but that's not really what's going on. What's really going on is they want to make sure that they get it right. And I think that's a mistaken thing that people go through. They say, "Oh, you wait too long," or these sorts of things. But really, it's thinking it through, going through the head and saying, "How am I going to approach this so I do it justice?"
Exactly.
Now, the 3 in you, that life path 3, that's how we add up everything of your birth date, the year, day, month, and that's the life path 3. And that's the person that likes to be, I call that the informed speaker communicator, where I call the stabilizer for the Taurus. I look at the life path 3 as being informed, being respected as a result of being informed and being heard. Those are all really important to the 3. As a child, if a parent did not acknowledge the voice of the child, a child might, if they don't say it, they would think it, "You don't hear me. You're not listening to what I have to say. You don't believe in me." So if you had attentive parents that would, when you would speak to them, pay attention to you, then you would have an easier time as an adult because they would acknowledge you early. If you didn't get that, then you would be looking for that acknowledgement as you moved into adulthood. Now, the only child is the piece where you had to learn independence. We talked about that earlier, where that independent creator, but goal-oriented at the same time, or you'd be bored to death.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So you'd have to figure out how to keep busy. And so combining the Taurus, the 3, and the only child would say to me that we've got, well, clearly you're in the, we know you've been there for over 20 years. You're doing what you really love. You're taking care of people. You're being a reliable friend to your listeners, and a loyal and giving them the information that they need and want to grow. And then that 3, you're being heard. For 22 years, you're being heard. That would fill you completely. And then and that only child, what would confuse people about the only child trait is while you're so social and very friendly and helpful and you reach out to people, there's a time that you have to pull back. And if someone would see that outside in the world, they'd be confused. Well, Rob's so friendly. What's going on? But that is something that you have to have in your mix and could confuse people, and you would have to educate them that, no, it's not you. It's like that old line, no, it's not you, it's me.
Right.
Right? But that only child piece really has to be fulfilled to give you some downtime. Now, you have a 9-day. I add up the day of birth. That's a 9. That's a humanitarian. So that accelerates your Taurus, and 9 accelerate each other to say that you had to do something in this lifetime that helped others, that reached out to others to make them feel comfortable, as well as you having safety and security at the same time.
That's why I was a cop at one time.
Were you a police officer?
Yes, I was.
You must have been a nice police officer.
I always treated the people on the other side of my badge as I would want to be treated if I was them.
Yeah, that would be your personality trait. How long did you do that?
Oh, gosh. Let me see. From 1972 until 1986.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would be one of the kinder, gentler officials, then, is what I would guess.
Well, yes.
With your sun sign.
Yeah.
And your 9-day.
Mind you, all the guys that I worked with were really super guys. I've got to tell you that. They were really good, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, you know what? Kids today should have to partake in either law enforcement or the military for 2 years before they get their high school leaving certificate. Because it would teach them another side of life that opened my eyes to a lot of things. So maybe, I understand where you're coming from, and yes, you've nailed me right to the T.
It's interesting because with the 9-day, I would be happy to hear if someone, especially someone had a life path 9.
Mm-hmm.
I can always tell if they have had good experiences with other people because it's all about people with the 9 in numbers and the Taurus. And if they've had bad experiences with people, they harden to someone that you would never that they wouldn't even know themselves unless they could heal from that. So I'm glad that you had good experiences, so we can have you today doing what you're doing today, reaching out to so many people.
I've always believed that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, and that never made sense to me. Why would you want to not help? Why would you not want to be able to be part of a solution? Who wants to be part of a problem? Mind you, that's the way I was raised. I was raised in a very positive and loving family, the same way that I want my children and my grandchildren to be raised. This is the kind of house that Laura and I provide for our family. This is the kind of family stability we provide for our family. We try to lead by example, just like my parents did. We fought, they maintained a high example of love. There was never anything but tons of love. And I think that had a major role in the way that both my brother and I turned out, the way that our children are turning out, helping each other. That's what life's about.
And that's to have. And I had mentioned earlier, if your parents gave you a voice at an early age, so you were prepped at a very young age, and you had your voice. And that filled you, and it made you the man that you are today.
So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
What are you seeing with the people who are coming to you for direction, for advice? Are you seeing a more down-to-earth, serious person instead of, am I going to find Mr. Right? Am I going to get that job? And the other very superficial questions that astrologers, numerologists, and psychics get all the time. Are you getting the more down-to-earth, the more serious? Are people getting to the point where they're saying, how can I help others, or what can I do to make this situation better?
Yeah, and I think, part of it, too, is that I insist that my job, what I say is my job is not to tell you what you should, your future be. That's not my job. My job is to give you the tools to do your work. So, for instance, one of the things that's very important in this process, and I think in general, is I ask people to think about if you're looking in a mirror, and you have a couple of people surrounding you, some that have been thorns in your side, and others that have been the loves of your life, your children, your partners, and then the mirror breaks, and there are shards all over the ground. Now you see shards, and you're standing there looking into the shards, and in some shards there's a reflection of, with you, the person that's a thorn in your side. There might be several reflections. And then you look to the other side, and you see there are the shards that the person that you love so much. There are certain reflections of that person in you. So in that one shard, we're 100% reflection of each other. So that thorn in our side, we have something very much in common with that person. And then we have to deal with it. We have to take full responsibility that we are both right and wrong at the same time. that depending on the perspective, depending on who's saying here's the situation, because no matter how, there are always two sides of a coin. So looking at those shards and taking responsibility for those are the types of people that I work with.
Is there a common thread between the people that seek your advice and seek you out?
I think that as a practitioner, and anyone that's listening that are practitioners, they know this too. We have to decide what our boundaries are as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just like your staff, and you decide, hey, who are we going to partner with tonight? It's a partnership. So we have to decide what our boundaries are and decide not to work with someone if we are not the right professional for them. And I think that's the toughest thing for some professionals to do, is say, you know what, I'm not the right person for you, but I do have recommendations, I have referrals.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. You have to maintain a certain level at all times.
You do.
Yeah. Knowing our birth mix pattern, is there a way to use mind over concepts like hypnosis or self-hypnosis, EFT, or NLP to strengthen our weaknesses to overcome challenges?
Absolutely. The one thing, I started out with birth mix patterns, and that's how you and I met years ago.
Years ago, yeah.
And what was happening is people wanted more. They wanted to know, okay, I know this, now what do I do? So I started to study neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, to figure out what else we could do to create this idea of well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And once we know the personality trends and we know our patterns, then we can replace them, and we can look at the anchors. I'd mentioned with Taurus that sometimes people might think, gosh, you're sitting on that for too long. In your head, I'm speaking for you, but this may not be true all the time. But in your head, you may be saying, but I need to roll this around in my head for a minute. Give me a little bit of time.
Exactly. Go through every scenario possible.
Yeah. So let me give me, and plus the only child piece also adds that. Let me go within. Let me go inside and process it, and then I'll let you know. But someone else might say, come, move.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can replace patterns like NLP anchors. We have anchors where you can re-educate someone on an anchor to say, no, I'm actually thinking about this. How about you give me 15 minutes and I'll get back with you? So now you're re-anchoring it for them.
Michelle, you and I have to take our final break for this hour. Please stand by. Exonation, Dr. Michelle Payton is our special guest. Fascinating lady and a good friend of the X-Zone. Her website is www.michellepayton.com. And for any of her books, all you have to do is go to her website or on Amazon.com and simply in the search engine at the top of the page, type in Michelle Payton. That's MICHELLEPAYTON.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.